Middlekauff! Hey, hey! All right, hello to everybody. Hello to all our hall monitors in the chat. Take and roll. Roll call. We are here.
RAs, remember RAs in the not in your
RAs.
dorm, but in mine.
No, we had an RA in our dorm.
Little peon dorms that I was in.
We had an RA in our dorm. And we ended up I think it's the third straight show we've talked about dorms. What's up, everybody? If you're on YouTube, hello. It is Wednesday afternoon, evening. And if you're watching it live, that's great. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you're watching it after the fact, that's great. If you're listening to the podcast, that's great. If you watch, go check out the pod. If you listen, go check out the YouTube. And get in the mailbag by going to Apple Podcasts, 5-star review. My eyes are burning. 5-star review. Leave us a question. Tell us your favorite bar if you want to include that. That's cool too. And we always appreciate the support there.
Yeah, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your enemies. Hopefully everyone had a good Memorial Day. I guess we talked to you yesterday as well. And yeah, we just attended one of the most exciting practices I've ever seen in my entire life.
There were we were standing on the sideline of Niners practice Wednesday going, what did we see that mattered today? And then they actually got into some sequences where Trey Lance made some throws that actually gave us some stuff to talk about. So we were very happy about that. But
I did at one point in time say the guys that are practicing right now, if they played the best team in the USFL, what the point spread would be. And I went with, -8.
Well, the question was, who's the quarterback of today's? Because no Fred Warner, no George Kittle, Trent Williams. We'll see him on September 1, whenever the season kicks off.
No
Nick
Bosa
will be right there with him.
Yeah.
Juszczyk was there today. No Debo.
They have no center.
No McGlinchey obviously not playing. Kinlaw not there. Maybe just had a conflict.
Drake Jackson was at
scheduling conflict for Kinlaw. No Danny Gray. No Ty Davis-Price. So luckily, we have eagle eyes and found some things there that are worth talking about. But the question is, who was the quarterback of this team?
I said Purdy. We'll go with Purdy. He's won a lot of games, guy, in the Big 12.
So he'd have Jennings. He'd have Ayuk. He'd have a bunch of running backs.
He'd have Josh Peterson's.
He'd have Jeff Wilson Jr. He'd have Jimmy Ward. All the corners, Chardavius Ward.
Their DBs
all
would
the
be
DBs.
pretty good.
That would be and you said the line would be what? Today's Niners practice team against.
Feel a little differently now that I realize you'd have Ward, Mosley, both Wards, I guess, right? I mean, it'd be hard for the guys in the USFL to get open, probably, on guys that have started in Super Bowls.
Defense would be good, right? Armstead.
Wouldn't you say both Wards and Mosley have started in the Super Bowl, right? Jimmy Ward, Chardavius Ward, multiple Super Bowls, and Emmanuel Mosley started in a Super Bowl. These guys are playing in the USFL, so I will pump back my tune and probably go -21, especially Kyle versus, as you said, one of Lou Holtz's 7 kids. Is one of the coaches, I think.
I think he's having a good year. The Mustangs, maybe.
Yeah, so I'll take that back. Armstead would be hard for them to block.
They might shut out whoever they probably would shut out, honestly, whoever they're playing. It'd be a shutout.
The running backs, I would say that Wilson Jr., who, again, people keep on fantasy even when he's injured because he scores NFL touchdowns, might go for a couple hundred yards on the ground, right?
JaMychal Hasty would have like 8 for 110. Yeah. He'd catch a touchdown on a wheel route. Actually,
Dwelly would go off.
Dwelly would have a big day.
Yeah. See Dwelly have like 5 for 80 and 2 touchdowns in the red zone. One of those.
All right, let's dive into a few things. A couple on the stream. Andrew on the stream and Big Turtle on the stream say Ambry Thomas has bulked up apparently. I actually thought he looked a little thicker today. I was looking at Ambry Thomas, and I'm not sure. We were in the car driving back to the studios where we do the show from, and I'm not sure if D'Amico Ryan said that, but the chat telling me that I absolutely could see that in him.
Good scouting by you. I didn't even notice him.
I always look for Ambry. I was talking to Biederman about Ambry, so that's how I was keeping an eye on him.
They clearly like Ambry Thomas, right? I mean, how would they not? The way he came on last year, and I'm sure they're bullish on old Ambry.
Yeah,
I've been pretty bullish on that. Just talk about the DBs, like all those guys there. Feels like they're pretty into it. That felt like the group that was like kind of taking this shit seriously. The D-line doesn't have a choice because they get screamed at.
Oh, my
But
God. We'll talk about the D-line. Those guys work so hard.
Yeah, but the DBs, give them credit for all showing.
Joe on the stream asked, did Trey look bigger than last year? I thought Trey Sermon looked a little skinnier, but that's just eyeball test. Trey Lance, I would not say he looked bigger. What did you think?
Yeah, to me, when you have that kind of thicker body type, he looks the same. He looked good last year, right? The first time you ever lay eyes on him. I was thinking about this driving home. Like, that is what it's supposed to kind of look like physically. It's easy to understand why as we're talking, they just started the match. When you see Mahomes, obviously Brady's huge and Rodgers is just a unique talent. But like when you see Mahomes and Josh Allen sitting next to each other, how thick they are. Now, granted, Josh Allen is enormous, but Mahomes has clearly put on some girth, I would say, since he's been on the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'd say Trey came into the league relatively
girthy,
big-boned for a guy that – how long did he play in college? A year and a half?
That's a great point. Especially for would you
say like
guy.
Josh Allen's a big-boned guy,
Big boned? Like you think he has –
I just mean he's thick.
Yeah. I won't overthink it. You're right. You're just
a thicker. You're just I'll give one guy I noticed today that he does not look skinny was McGlinchey. McGlinchey looked, I thought today, like an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Just I like my offensive lineman to be, I wouldn't say chubby. He just looked thicker. He didn't look like frail. I think he gets knocked sometimes from this guy just 6'9", 220. He looked like an offensive lineman, I thought, walking around in a t-shirt.
Yeah, I agree. Carl on the stream says that Trey sidearm throw, though. Jimmy ain't throwing that. Thank you, Carl. We're going to actually show the throw. We have another video up if you're on YouTube, or if you're listening, you can go to the YouTube channel. There's a cut up of about 3 minutes of just Trey Lance throwing from today. Now, you're not allowed to film 7-on-7, 11-on-11 stuff, but some of the drills they do before that at the early portion of practice. And one of the throws is a sidearm throw specifically that we'll show you.
You want to hear a prediction right
coming
now?
Coming up in the stream today.
There was a Trey Lance throw to Brandon Ayuk that the 49ers will tweet out later today. That will be my prediction, or Instagram it out.
He made two, actually. The one that they won't put out because it was a drop. I don't know if you would even call it a drop. It was just a tough play to make. He didn't make it. But I thought that was a really good throw to Brandon Ayuk too. But we'll break down the Trey Lance.
Do you agree that they got a social media post coming out with Trey involved today?
If you're the social team, you have to put out something, Trey. Right?
Well, I feel like they didn't do that last week. I haven't seen nothing went viral.
Mistake.
Now's your time. The guy from Miami's like, be careful.
You got to run this one by legal first. Al Guido needs to see it before you're allowed to post it. The player needs to see it. The player's agent needs to see it. Yeah, a lot of people need to check it off. It's a good point. DeAnthony says Trey's body looks significantly bigger in his lone 2020 college game versus 2019 game. I don't remember that difference, but we have to go back and check. Maybe was he wearing rib protector?
Well, 2020. Well, I think part of it probably was he was a redshirt freshman. He took the year off to start training. Part of it was he went pro once the COVID happened and they canceled the season, because they canceled the basically all the non-Power 5, right? May? Does that sound early to you? May-ish?
May, June, July. Yeah, that doesn't sound too early to me.
I'm pretty sure that he kind of announced he was going to go pro just
because it would have been training. Early April that things started, basketball tournaments is when that happened, Yeah,
and it felt like the smaller schools canceled fast. And I would imagine, in 3-4 months when you have good genetics, you start really focusing on what you're eating and lifting. Because one thing it's hard, to keep – once you start playing the season, it's not like how hard are you lifting, right? You maintenance is as the strength coaches will say. We maintenance.
One other question I wanted to answer. Steve-O says, don't you have to cover the music in the video? It's crazy. The YouTube algorithm, the copyright algorithms they have are incredible. Because I post that Trey Lance video on our YouTube channel, and there's Niners practice music playing throughout it. The rule is we can't monetize it. The people who own the copyright to those songs can get paid off of that video. So we just can't monetize is the rule. But it's wild how quickly the YouTube like copyright net catches all those songs.
Wouldn't you say that in the internet age, it's really one of the most unique things because you can do something with that playing in the background, movies, commercials, videos, whatever. That's always been a big pushback from the artists / the record companies. Like, we owned this. You don't just get to use it. You can listen to it, but you don't get to use this on your shit.
Right. Which I would say,
do movies, do you think movie companies, is there like some sort of thing that you pay $100,000 a year and you get access to any song? Like, how do they get access to all this? Like, they pay for individual songs?
I think if it's a movie, they pay for the individual song. Now, if you like for our podcast, if we wanted to play like real music, intro, outro, I don't know. Simmons might have just paid for Pearl Jam, but like if you want to play a bunch of different songs, then I think you just subscribe to a couple of the services that pay the,
what would you be willing to pay for Sledgehammer? Would 10 grand a year be too much?
I think that I would not be willing to pay 10 grand a year for that song. Would you?
I mean,
I just don't think I don't think you get the ROI on 10 grand a year for that song.
No, but it would just sound pretty sweet. Sounds good.
It does sound good.
You don't really play it that long. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying
now maybe that'd be part of the deal.
There is no ROI.
You can't pay more than. Well, to me, it's like if we did a show where it was like we analyze music, then we're willing to spend a lot of money.
I'd say if the show was called Sledgehammer, there might be some just value in that, right?
Yeah. Iceman asked, what do sports stations pay for intro music? I don't know what I think there's two different ones called ASCAP, like ASCAP, which is one of the music licensing companies. And then there's another one. I mean,
I don't know. Most sports stations are under the umbrella of the music station. So they're all kind of intertwined, right?
No, the sports stations pay for those music licenses to be able to play those songs.
Even though like they're under the cluster of the music stations?
Totally different station. Yeah.
Wow. Didn't know that.
So I don't know if it's like 25,000 a year. I mean, it's not $1,000.
No.
It might be 100,000. I don't know.
Have you seen the net worth of most musicians? It's pretty high.
Yeah,
the good ones make some cash.
Yeah, but they make some cash for a lot of people.
Yeah,
and then they get some of it in the end, right?
Yeah. Well, the big ones get a lot.
Yeah, it's like the new podcasting,
exactly
operations. All right. A few things we want to get to. Can we actually address before we look at BMI? Thank you. Yes, that's the other one. Can we address real quick what you said to me when we got to the practice field today? You're like, do you want to take back your Kyler take? That's not what you said. However you said it.
I just said our Kyler take didn't age well.
Yeah.
Like the tweet, like that didn't age well. He did, as before I was headed to Niner practice, I see a tweet from Adam Schefter that said Kyler Murray will be on the field today. And then when I just sat down, I looked up at J.J. Watt's at the match. Now, granted, it's a 30-minute flight, so I would guess that J.J. Watt was at practice too. But Kyler did attend. I mean, part of my knock on him has been separate from the player, which I do question, just can that sustain, and I would not pay him, was my main, like, you don't show up in practice, like, I'm out, slappy type move. Like, I don't put him in the category of Lamar, who's an older player, much more accomplished, MVP, who has been, he's beloved in the building. Kyler has had issues. They've openly talked about it. But, like, you don't show up. Like, I'm sorry, I red flagged you. He did show up. Now, that's a really low bar. But, like, you and I are at fucking 49er practice, and the guy that was drafted one spot after him never attends these. So it's like, and just watching this practice, one thing I mentioned to you earlier, when Aaron Rodgers and Brady come on the screen, and Aaron Rodgers now hasn't been for several years. Tom Brady clearly doesn't go anymore. I cannot blame those guys for not attending. Now, I don't put Kyler in their category, but I do get, I can understand the side of quote-unquote star players. Now, we could argue back and forth where Kyler fall. His talent outweighs his the player, but I think in his mind, his talent, he views himself as, if you just said Kyler, Mahomes, Josh Allen, he would call himself their equal, right? In his mind. I'm disagreeing with him, but I would guess him and his people view himself in that kind of group. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think he is, not only, I think we all agree he's not the player that those guys are. I don't think he's the leader that those guys are. So we talked about him a lot on Tuesday's podcast. I I don't remember like every word of everything we said, but my opinion still holds. I think he and Cliff have kind of peaked, at least maxed out. I think maybe Kyler could reach another level, maybe with another coach. And Cliff is not a joke. I'm not saying that, but I still think he's going to want whatever 45 million, and I don't think he delivers on or off the field. Like, to me, it's one thing if you don't showing up halfway through. If you just I'm Tom Brady, I'm not showing, I just don't show up. Okay, that's just your thing. But the show up halfway through is kind of weird, right? Show up.
Well, it's like he got talked into like this. You're not going to get paid.
Like an example that there's not like a clear plan here.
Well,
so
not. No, I'm not. I'm out on the guy. And again, I'm not. It sounds like I'm defending him. I'm really not. But he did attend. He did show up.
Yeah.
And we were just at a practice with a team with 8 Pro Bowlers, and the only 2 we saw, well, I guess Juszczyk was practicing. I didn't notice him, but I wouldn't blame Kyle if he was fucking on the East Coast hanging out, right? Kittle and Fred were in shorts. Clearly, Kyle said last week they were injured. Are they? I mean, it was just like we're not risking it, and I don't blame them. And their 2 most talented players are in completely different states.
Like physical states or state of minds?
Well, I think Debo would fall under both, but the other 2 are literally just in other states.
It depends on the day what state Debo's in.
I would guess Trent's from Texas, but where would you guess Trent Williams is from?
Virginia, Texas. Texas is a good guess.
Yeah.
Where he plays college ball?
Oklahoma.
Okay, so
Longview, Texas.
Longview, Texas.
Well, here's what I know, and here's what Nick Saban would tell you if he was on our screen. Trent Williams coming out of Longview, Texas. Do you know where he's not going anymore? Oklahoma. Do you know where he would be playing? He'd be with Jimbo.
A&M?
Don't you think he'd go to A&M? They'd pay him $7 million.
Somebody would.
Jimbo would.
Not Jimbo. I don't handle the cash. I was in the bathroom. What happened while I was gone? You committed? Fantastic.
I just want these guys to stop running away from this topic. Like they still feel very dirty about talking
until it's not illegal for them to do it. They're going to keep running away.
They run away. Didn't Jimbo say only one of his 11?
Now 11 of our early enrollees, only one has an NIL deal. I love when they add this. I checked. I'm glad you checked. All right.
Sure, buddy.
John, here is one throw from Trey Lance's day that we were allowed to film. We're going to talk about coming up some of the throws we saw that we were not allowed to film. But let's talk about one throw that Trey Lance made that stood out to us. And the video is, for those of you watching, let's watch the video together. Here it is, Trey Lance to the left of your screen. And we'll run it a couple times, but let's watch this throw here. Play action. And he's got kind of the sidearm fling. My first reaction when I saw this was kind of Kyler-esque or Rodgers-esque with the footwork and the sidearm. This is obviously he's simulating kind of a game situation where he's avoiding a pass rusher, maybe somebody at his side, somebody reaching up in front of him. He's got to throw it around them to the flat.
Go play by play for the podcast audience. If this was an actual play and that guy was an untouched rusher.
Oh.
It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, here Trey Lance play action under pressure. Bosa sidestep. Yeah, it's too hard. But what do you think?
I mean, I would say I didn't notice this. It's good film work by you.
You have to be like, look out, get rid of it, Trey.
This is I would say this is an encouraging sign, because one thing I would say Jimmy really struggled with doing is ad-libbing, and a couple times he ad-libbed this year where those kind of rollouts, you're like, oh my God, this is going to be sweet. And then he threw it right to the other team. Now, there's no defenders. There's an equipment guy that's catching the ball. And I told you, he's actually pretty good. I didn't see a ball hit the ground. He caught everything. He's got good hands for an equipment guy. I would just say it's encouraging just being able to move the arm angle around, right? And still put velocity because he's got a really big arm. Like, this is what, when someone in the chat was saying about his size, to me, his size, last year when I saw him, right away you go, that looks like a big-time NFL prospect. Now he's an NFL player, And I was thinking about this on the drive home. Like, now it's about like putting all the physical gifts together. And so is Fields is going to be trying to do that. Zach Wilson trying to do it and then become a good player. And we're just watching Mahomes and Josh Allen. They do the basic things pretty well. But what really has put them, why they can sit next to Brady and Rodgers, is they do spectacular things. And part of the reason we pounded the table for Fields or Lance, I'm not giving up on Fields yet, even though I think it's probably going to be a tough season for him, over Mac Jones, was I can live with some of the shitty. Mahomes has some shitty. Jimmy had a ton of shitty. I'm paying for the spectacular here when I'm drafting really high. And obviously this is a simulated drill where the dude gets to just come off. But that is a play that happens sometimes, right? In Kyle's offense, play action, you try to get the backside guy to bite. Well, if you're playing and now half of his minions are all over the league, I would imagine during the week, it's like, stay home, stay home, stay home, stay home. He's going to be put in that predicament. I would bet $50,000 this season, potentially in September, right? They run the ball a lot. They do play action, and they're going to use his athleticism. So, like, can he ad-lib? Mahomes, Josh Allen, Rodgers, ad-lib the shit out of it. That's really not a Brady play because you wouldn't put Brady in that predicament, right? He's not athletic enough. But those guys, the guys that can move and they can make things happen if it's not there. And to me, and again, I'm not saying he's like, I don't know if it's going to translate to the game. Time will tell, but that's what you're envisioning when you take a huge swing. It's just like, I have no clue how we just got a 27-yard gain. Well, it's because he stopped on a dime. He threw it from his shoulder and he got it 15 yards over a defender, right?
So I think what's interesting when we talk about the differences between practice and games sometimes is I think that
it always comes back to Mac Jones
in the chat. I think that like there are a lot of things that professional athletes, the elite of the elite, can do in non-game situations. And then what happens is you move up from high school to college to the NFL. And even for some of the best, somewhere along the way, you realize, well, I can't do that and get away with it at this level. And then there's a few guys like Mahomes and Rodgers and Josh Allen whose physical skills are so great that the things that other people have to cut out of their diet, so to speak, or have to take off the table, they can keep doing because the league never says to them, oh, you shouldn't make that play. It's not worth the risk. And I think Garoppolo, oftentimes, one of the things you loved about Jimmy, kind of the Romo-esque part of him was he had this, like, what every guy who plays quarterback who grew up like in the 90s or early 2000s, you were just Favre, man. Like, everyone wanted to make Favre throws.
You know, when you sprint like 5 yards to the left and you just let it rip,
and
but when you do it in your backyard, it skips. You're like, God.
But guess what? Brett got old, and in the end, Brett threw a middle of the field interception in the playoffs to end his career, right? Yeah, like sad. Eventually it gets everybody. But the question is,
NFC Championship game.
But the question is, when you are at your peak, who can pull it off and who can't? And I think one of the things that makes Garoppolo a roller coaster is he's I think pretty creative mentally. He's got some creative mind. And there are some things he tries to do that if he was more physically capable, and I mean like elite, like Mahomes, or he would get away with some stuff, but he's not, and he doesn't get away with it.
Because wouldn't you say like Tony Romo is the best version of Jimmy? You know, he's a little better athlete, a little bigger, but in that same vein where you're like, if Tony probably in a weird way would have played more like Phillip Rivers, Brady, and Manning, like more under control, every once in a while did it, but it felt like both those guys like, I got this. It's like, well, I don't think if you should be
time to make a play.
Yeah. Well, what would Tom Brady do right here? He'd hit the ground or he'd throw it at the guy's feet immediately, right? Because he just wouldn't fuck around,
right?
Because he's been ingrained in his mind like there is no fuck around in this spot. We always live to fight another day. Mahomes, at minimum, would do a 360 and try to run away.
Which can be dangerous.
Yeah, and it gets him in trouble. Josh Allen might just grab the defender, throw him to the ground, and keep running around and then throw a touchdown.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like, this is what the Mahomes effect is. This is really what you're looking for. 20, 30 years ago, like when we were kids, that was like doing the no, they didn't want any of that, right? They just wanted pocket quarterbacks. They wanted NFL starting versions of like Nate Sudfeld, 6'4", tall, big arm. That's not. This is where I go back to giving Kyle and just the group credit for at least taking the swing. Is like, I got to take a swing on this now because the rules. It's not really just a pure. Trey Lance, if he's going to be a great player, is going to have to win within the pocket. Josh does it. Mahomes does it. All the good. Lamar's gotten better at it. Herbert's thrived at it. So that's not going to change. But what's going to make him a really good player to me is going to be the ad lib ability, and I do think that was a huge reason in the draft room that ultimately Kyle, whether he started with Mac or even if they went in even, ended up with this guy. The upside is just not there with McCorkle. Because that ultimately, I think, was, as we've talked about, it was Mac Jones and Trey Lance.
Yeah, I'm
not saying Mac might be able to do some semblance of this. I'm not acting like he's just.
Well,
I don't think Mac's some scrub.
Look, John, I mean, part of why we talk about Trey Lance now, the time is now to play him, is part of this is he has to prove to Kyle Shanahan that Kyle shouldn't try to reel him in when he goes off script. Right. That's part of what he's got to earn. And the reality is when you're your first year as a rookie, most of what you do is not that stuff that we're looking at here. Most of what you do is whatever Kyle's going to scheme open JaMychal Hasty on some wheel route. And I just got to hit him in stride.
Do you remember, let's just assume they're a good team.
JaMychal Hasty may not make the team,
but Trey is just solid. Remember early on in Russell's career, it was like Russell just benefited from great defense, Marshawn Lynch. And then it was proved like the more he got to cook, all he wanted to do was cook. And then it's going to be fascinating. I would say one of the main differences is like ultimately Pete, like his success at USC running the ball. Kyle, like Jimmy has been allowed to do a lot of stuff. Now Jimmy has earned that trust early, in 17 and in 19 when they were having some success early on. I'm going to be fascinated by just the leash that he gives, the way he calls games. Because last year, and I remember defending him, even though it was concerning that Arizona game. Kyle just went in there with like a very, very basic game plan. I think he would tell you over beers. Like I was not going to put the kid in an uncompromising situation like that. It's not about my ego. It's about the safety of him and just giving him, if he knows 7 plays really well, just try to run these 7 plays. We got the talent around him to attempt to win the game. Looking back, I don't think it's that crazy. Because remember, people were pissed. He was running the same play over and over. It was like, yeah, well, I mean, the guy's 21 years old coming from North Dakota State. Maybe Trey will say one day, like, listen, that was a pretty intense environment. And Arizona at the time, remember, was like 6-0. They had guys on defense just crushing people. I mean, they were not your typical Arizona Cardinal team. They were coming in. You could argue that game going in, they were the best team in the NFL. On the road. Remember the hit that he took either Isaiah Simmons or Budda Baker on the goal line? It was like,
yep.
Oh my God.
Yep.
But I guess my ultimate point, just watching this, what I think, you just watch him at practice, I don't think it's going to look as much. A guy, we haven't seen one. Now, we've only been to 2 practices, and they were combined, 2 hours and 30 minutes. I have not seen one to the zone, anything in that vague, which is encouraging because he can do that. Just the zone read kind of.
So
crap.
they did drill
that I noticed.
Their early quarterback drills, they did some of that stuff where it was like, it'd be Trey Lance taking the snap, Nate Sudfeld playing running back, standing beside him, presumably like in a pistol, or I guess not a pistol, a shotgun, off to his left. And he would do like hand, pull, and then
to basically just get like the RPO footwork down.
Yeah. Yep. And all of them did it. But in terms of running plays, no, they didn't.
Which, in fairness to even Trey Lance, like that is an NFL staple now. Like every team runs the RPO.
Yeah.
Right. Especially with a quarterback that can move a little bit. Like every team in the league has that in their playbook.
Yeah.
Right.
And it'll be Debo standing next to him though when he runs it in the game.
Yeah. Making $17 million a year or 28.
Weighing 235 pounds. No, we're kidding. All right, John, before we talk about some of the other throws from Trey Lance that we're not able to show you, let's talk about our friends at Sleep Number. sleepnumber.com/ham. Go right now to sleepnumber.com/ham.
Guy, I was laying in my Sleep Number bed, which I've had for years. And I got in it last night about 7:30. and I turned on We Own the City, I think it's called. It's on HBO Max. I highly recommend it. Good show.
The guy that looks like he's a Wahlberg but isn't a Wahlberg. Is
that guy? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love that guy.
I don't know what his name is, but good actor.
And I all of a sudden my eyes open and it's like midnight. I passed out probably like 8:30 because I was just so comfortable, and I owed all the Sleep Number, and I love my Sleep IQ bed. Can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, here based on the average Sleep IQ data, sleepers who use their 360 smart bed technology get almost 30 minutes more of restful sleep per night. That's up to 170 hours per year. No matter how you like to sleep, or maybe a partner likes to sleep, there's something for everybody. John Softer likes a 40 on the Sleep Number. I like a little firmer, 55. That's okay. Something for everybody. Something for everybody. There's no better time to try the Sleep 30 Challenge by Sleep Number. It's a 30-day sleep wellness program shown to improve sleep quality and to change your sleep habits for the better. Check out the program for free anytime by going to mysleep30.com. And right now, discover special offers for a limited time at your Sleep Number store, or just go to sleepnumber.com/ham. That's sleepnumber.com/ham. Sleep Number, proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep.
Yes, it is.
Okay, let's talk about what else we saw from what was this? Ken says, does Brock Purdy have a chance of making the roster? We've answered this question before, but we'll keep answering it. Yes.
Yeah. Well, to me, he's at minimum a lock to make the practice squad.
That's a better answer. Yes.
And it'll just come down to, feels like there's are there rules you get the third quarterback? I'm not sure. I'm not up on the, I'm not exactly, what's the guy's name? McKay that runs the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh,
yeah, one of those guys with the
not Adam
rules,
McKay
on the rules committee.
Is that guy still running the Falcons?
I feel like he is. Bob McKay,
not Bob. No, tall, skinny guy, wears Baldwell.
Rich
McKay.
Rich McKay. I mean, the guy's been a CEO of 3 different teams. I don't know him. This is not a personal shot. Feels like he's got a pretty good racket going. Just
you know what's funny?
CEOs, the team. He never gets in trouble if they win or lose. He was a GM of Tampa, 94 to 03. So when Gruden was there, then he just became president CEO. Maybe he realized the wins and losses don't fall under me, but I still get paid 7 figures.
Yeah. It was funny is I just looked him up. I was going to say to you, I feel like Rich McKay has been 63 for the last 25 years. And I look, he's 63.
Bald brother.
I think maybe he went white hair early and he's got the good short kind of goatee thing with the white, which is a good look.
Do you know why I thought of him? And just because this is his wiki and it makes sense. Every time you hear about league meetings, Rich McKay was running this. McKay is the longest standing member in the history of the NFL competition committee.
Wow. So there's no competition on his election, I guess.
Well, it feels like most Andy's I'm gonna transition off this committee.
26 straight years.
Isn't a long time on the competition committee?
He's just he's got a niche, man.
Is he a made man in the NFL mob? It feels like it, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, he was part of the 11 negotiating CBA. He's part of the health and safety committee. He's just on every committee. That's smart.
He helps with the CBA. I think he might be good relationships with the PA. So he's useful.
Yeah, I mean Tampa. Did the Glazers own the Bucks then?
They definitely did when Gruden got there. So maybe not in the
03.
early 90s, but
maybe they fired him or
because they paid Al Davis the $8 million. So yeah, they fired him. Then he went to the Falcons. I mean, he's been on the Falcons for 20 years, GM and president. Kind of genius, like Pat Riley, but without the resume.
It's kind of, you're right, because he drafted Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, he drafted him, and Mike Allstott and Ward Dunn and Rondé Barber.
He must have inherited old John, huh?
John, man, you and I had a good debate about John Lynch today at practice.
I said, we pointed at him, and John Lynch, honestly, from the angle we were at, and George was about 15 feet away, looked very similar in size. For John being, he's got to be 50 plus, looks fantastic. And I said, in their primes, George obviously in his prime, John Lynch probably prime 99, 2000, 2001. Collide in the open field. in a game too. So not like fake drill, like in an open field where they're going to collide. And George loves collisions. John loves collisions. Who would you put your money on? And then you asked me, do you think today he could bring George to the ground?
I said, could John Lynch tackle George Kittle today? Because what does Kittle weigh? Like 250?
No, I'd guess. Yeah. Yeah, I would guess 250 is pretty big.
Yeah,
230, 235 maybe.
Feels like that's a little low for him, but regardless, what do you think John Lynch weighs? John Lynch might weigh as much.
I would imagine John Lynch weighs more now than when he played. Would be my guess, but I could be wrong. George Kittle at the combine, yeah, you're right. Weighed 247. Yeah, maybe weighs 250.
So I'm not saying like 1-on-1 in a drill right now. That's but like if 11 on 11, John Lynch is coming downhill, Kittle is not exposed. Like he's got the ball and he's running. I think there's a chance Lynch could bring him. Like, I don't think he would pop him, but I think he might make the tackle. I think
would he be allowed to tackle the way that he created his Hall of Fame resume?
Well, it depends. You and I say no, but when we had John Lynch on the podcast, we interviewed him at Levi Stadium, and we had a video, his like highlight video, and I said like I think a lot of these hits would be illegal today, and he was like, no. He was it kind of got his fire going a little bit. He's like, no, those are legit, those are clean hits.
I think what would happen, and he might have to admit this too, is George would get fined. Let's say they had a collision, because John Lynch, I mean, if George Kittle weighs 250, what's John right now? 238, 242. Like he ain't 220. So if his clavicle might snap. You know, if like you get into an old car that hasn't been driven and something just breaks, like it just might be, the wear and tear on the old bones.
Yeah.
That to me, that might happen. Or like a muscle gets ripped. The chances that everything would stay intact on that collision for John and George would be pretty low.
Yeah, you guys should all in on one hit, just all in for one big hit.
If the match makes money, could you do stuff like that in the NFL and people pay for it?
So it's not a celebrity boxing match. It's not Frank Gore boxing. It's like,
no, it's guys in pads doing some
like pros versus Joes.
Yeah, some collisions, but just former pros.
Just collisions.
Like could Dion? I guess Dion doesn't have toes.
Just Oklahoma drill. Like coming up tonight on TNT.
Yeah. Or like, hey, would you watch 5 routes Darrelle Revis on Jamar Chase?
Is the 2007 Buccaneers defense taking on the 1998 Cowboys offense?
Would you watch Max Scherzer throw simulated couple ABs to Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire? Do stuff like that. Football's a little harder because there's collisions.
Yeah, or even would it be so you'd want one active and one old guy?
Like, would you watch Michael Jordan just do not the 3-point contest, but make it like long twos and just go around round robin with the 5 balls?
Have you ever played the game that's called Michael Jordan?
Video game? No.
Our buddy AJ showed me this years ago. It's an incredible workout. Basically, what it is, you play to 11. It's you against Michael Jordan. It's like if you're by yourself, like playing at a hoop, like real life, not metaverse. And what you do is you just go back and forth taking elbow jumpers. If you make one, it's 1 point. If you miss it, Michael Jordan gets 2 points because MJ hits all those shots.
It never misses.
Never misses. So it's just you just catch, elbow, jumper, elbow. Ideally, you have a rebounder. If you have a rebounder, it is a fucking workout. It doesn't sound like it would be, but it is. You're just going back and forth, elbow, 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 elbow. And it's almost impossible. It's so hard to win.
How many steps do you think between the elbows?
Well, you do a little curl. You do a little short. You do a little curl around. So, maybe 4. But it's your legs just after a while just give out. And it's impossible. I don't think I've ever beaten MJ in that game. It's so hard. You're
not alone, guy.
It's a great game. Highly recommend if you got a hoop. I recommend playing it. It's a lot of fun. And it's really hard. And it's a great workout.
I have to do that one day. I got a basketball hoop down the street from me.
Yeah. I've been itching to get out. All right, John, let's talk about throws we saw from Trey Lance. What did we think of the day that Trey Lance had Wednesday, June 1, 49ers Open OTA? What stood out?
I was impressed given who he's playing with. I thought if I came away, now again, I don't have the tape. Is he going to the right reads? I mean, that only Kyle and Trey and the other offensive players would truly know that. Clearly, he was going every time Brandon Ayuk was in, he was going after Brandon Ayuk, and I don't blame him. If Brandon Ayuk's got to be looking around like, why the hell am I out here? So it's like, if I'm going to run a route, throw it to me. But I just there were a couple throws where there was definitely one where I thought he did the awful drop way down, and it really stood out to me. But for the most part, I don't watch his release and go, this is going to be a huge detriment. Now, again, it's a simulated situation, but I've come away these 2 weeks being pretty positive with the skill set, him making the throws, had a couple wow throws. Don't feel like he's had many that have like one thing Jimmy used to do, and this is probably because his arm is, if Trey's throwing 96, Jimmy was throwing 91. A lot less like guys jumping routes that are going to pick it off. Now, that's inevitable, but I have not seen that yet in these two games with a guy get in front of a route that's way late just because the ball's going a little slower and the guy picking it off. So my overall take is just came away pretty positive. Like, that's a 22-year-old project. Like, we're making progress. It feels just, he feels like an NFL player to me. That's now, that mean he's going to translate to be 38 touchdowns or could easily be 22. But I just mean, like, if I was standing on the sideline as the, national scout, work for John Lynch, I'd feel pretty positive about what we got in this player. Now, I would say of all the positions, quarterback is the hardest to keep translating, right? As game plans come, as opponents come, as guys get injured and you start playing with different guys. The one thing I told you, now their two best wide receivers are not tall guys. Like, I think ideally you would like one of your two wide receivers. Like, I would rather have Debo with Kyle than AJ Brown. But if you said they had AJ Brown, right? Or, I mean, Jamar Chase isn't huge, but he fucking plays big. A guy like that with Ayuk or a guy like that with Debo. I'm not saying I want Debo on the team, but I just think he's not, I wouldn't call him pinpoint accurate. Like, that's just not what he's going to hang his hat on early in his career. We saw it a little last year. I think you noticed it at practice. It's just, that's fine. Josh Allen wasn't pinpoint accurate, right? You got to make the big plays on top of that. But the one now luckily Debo and Ayuk are very, very skilled, right? I mean, they played with a guy I wouldn't call pinpoint the last several years and pulled it off okay. But they're going to have to, there's going to be a lot of catching radius used now, they're smaller guys. So it's like Juwan Jennings. They had multiple Juwan Jennings. That would be helpful. They do have Kittle, which matters.
Yeah. We still haven't seen, there was Jennings. I'm going to do, it's hard to, Jimmy Ward might dispute. So it's hard to know what was supposed to happen on a play, but here's the basics. I'll tell you the basic. Jennings was past Jimmy Ward on a ball that did not come to Jennings. And I watched that play unfold because I was watching Jennings and Jimmy Ward line up against each other. And I wanted Trey Lance to throw that ball because it wasn't a ball we get to see him throw much. He threw a deep ball to Marcus Johnson, one of their, receivers. And he's not a big guy. There was not really a play to be made. You actually thought it was a good throw because you thought he put it in a place where only his receiver was going to get it. And it was really
down
hard
the left.
to tell.
He's down the left sideline. It was on Marcus Johnson, who, again, I don't think anyone listening or watching this could point this guy out of a lineup. It was on the shoulder on the side of the out of bounds where he had to pivot that way. Now, the DBs, there were a couple guys that just made a play. It was hard to tell. And all right, like, did you feel a DB got his hand on the ball? Not that he dropped it, or
no? I thought that he put the ball on the sideline, and in part maybe because of some contact, in part because of the receiver didn't get there, right? Or the ball wasn't thrown to him. But I'm with you. I thought it looked like it was not a bad throw, even though it was an incompletion.
I would say Jimmy Garoppolo probably doesn't make that, like, doesn't even throw that type ball.
I think it just
That's not really his route.
I just think it illustrates your point about it's really hard to tell with some of these situations. And I do think the Niners, there's potentially a part of Debo's game, which is his deep ball receiving, that because of Jimmy Garoppolo's strengths and weaknesses has not been a part of the 49ers playbook. But, throwing the ball down the field is hard. Accuracy down the field is hard. And one thing I'd be interested in, and Danny Gray and a lot of the rookies weren't practicing today, is there a guy, is Danny Gray that guy that can get open down the field a lot? When I say open, I don't mean a step on the man and you're throwing it through a tight window. I mean open by 5 yards, 8 yards, and you just got to hit him. And maybe it's Debo. I don't know. But a lot of those things tend to happen on wheel routes that Kyle Shanahan schemes up, or the tight end coming down the seam. But he made I thought, a nice throw. How about the Ayuk? There were 2 Ayuk plays. He went to Ayuk a lot. One on a kind of one of those passes out to the sideline where the ball has to be low, kind of at the receiver's feet, because the corner is right there and can jump the route. And Ayuk had to go down to the ground to try and catch it, and he couldn't get it. It kind of went through his arms under his chest as he was diving down, facing the quarterback. But I know you thought on that throw,
touch
it was the only
touch
place.
it, you clutch it. You know,
Yeah, it was the only
I
place
bet
to
Ayuk
throw
would
that
say he
ball.
should catch the ball.
And how about the other throw to Ayuk that you thought was good?
Well, to me, it's the classic, like, they're in a zone defense, and Ayuk, is probably 15 to 20 yards down the field, and there's an underneath defender that kind of is looking at Trey, but is not parallel with Ayuk, is a little off, but the moment the ball's thrown is able to get parallel with Ayuk, and you have to place it over his head as the safety or other defensive back is coming over, probably the safety, right, from the hash to, in John Lynch's day, kill you. In today's day, probably jump at the ball. And you have to put it over a guy and to the left of a guy coming. It has to be, I would say the radius for that throw is a couple yards, right, for it to be complete. And it has to be perfect. Jimmy and a lot of guys have made the throw when you don't throw it high enough, it gets picked by the front defender.
Yeah.
Right. And
Fred Warner.
If you don't have a great arm, it floats up there and the DB can break up it probably at, PBU type.
Right.
Or hit the guy as he's catching it and just breaks it up. And this is where his arm strength comes in. That's a touch throw because you're throwing it on a rope, but it has to have a little loop, but it has to be fast, right? And again, like we were talking earlier, for that skill set is why there were a couple throws a day where I bet if you're a coach on the staff and optimistic and bullish on this player, you're excited about. I mean, you're making these in June, like let's fucking go, right? Because that's type plays that I would not trust Jimmy Garoppolo to make. Honestly, if Jimmy Garoppolo could make more splashy plays, I would say he would exponentially be viewed as a better player. I think the reason he's so average is he's just viewed on like his best throws are like the slants. He doesn't really have the explosive plays. And one thing was pretty clear last year with Ayuk. Kittle was banged up a little bit, but definitely toward the end of the year. And Debo was like, explosive plays were there for these guys. Because Jimmy hit him when it had to happen in that Rams game, week 18 to get in the playoffs. He hit a couple. But I would say the majority of the year, they weren't hitting plays like that, right? Their explosive plays came in the run game. So if they could to get the plays in the passing game to go along with the run game, that to me is where can your offense be like 12th overall? You don't have to be like a top 5 offense, but their defense is going to be really good. Their run game is going to be good. If their passing game cannot just be, I don't even know where they rank last year, but it feels like they rank low. Does it feel like they rank low to you?
In terms of what, like passing yardage?
Yeah, I guess it depends how you would. He definitely didn't throw that many touchdowns relative to like high-end players.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of yardage, they had to be near the bottom of the league, right?
Yeah, I'll look it up right now. Feels low.
Yeah, what you don't want, I keep going back to this, but what you don't want, it's great when you have the lead to run a 14-play drive, but if, you don't want to have to always, you want to be able to score in 5 plays or 4 plays sometimes. And the only way to do that, unless you get a great return, is to push the ball down the field through the air.
A little higher than you think.
17?
Yeah, well, ESPN doesn't rank them, but they're probably like 13th, 14th.
Okay.
But here's where it's skewed, right?
Yak.
Yeah. I mean, they hit probably 3 quick screens over 60 plus yards. Like they are right next to the Vikings, for example, and the Cardinals. Those teams, I watched the Vikings. They fucking bomb it down the field. The Cardinals, I mean, Kyler throws some bombs. The Niners, to me, it's just skewed because of this is where you got to put stats into context. Like they hit big passing plays behind the line of scrimmage that went for 70. I mean, it happened. It's how Debo became a legend, right? Ayuk hit a couple. if Kittle has a 20-yard play, a lot of times he catches it relatively short and breaks a tackle. And that's part of the good thing. Like, you have that in the bag. If you can just get your normal plays where you can just catch it 20 yards and hit the ground, imagine just adding that element.
You know, it's funny. I'm looking at a stat here that says Jimmy had 55 passes of 20 yards or more, tied with Aaron Rodgers, Dak Prescott, and one more than Justin Herbert.
Kyle deserves a raise.
I don't know if those are air yards, though. The ball, it says passing attempts that travel 20-plus yards. That travel.
That feels skewed to me, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know what's crazy is in 2021, the average yard per pass for the 49ers was 8.6. This is blowing. This feels fucking crazy to look at. They're number 2 in the league, only behind Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals.
And Burrow, I think, was statistically the best deep ball thrower in the league last year.
Right ahead of the Rams, who were also throwing bombs. Like, the Niners, we all watched them. They were not playing like the Bengals and the Rams. They were not. Part of, like, our whole thing with the Rams was, like, the Rams went to this pass-heavy bombs away, and the Niners were like, run it. Yet the stats, and this shows you, to me, that Jimmy stat, I mean, I remember, it honestly sounds a little familiar. They hit touchdowns that were fucking basically handoffs. Shanahan. I mean, does this make Shanahan look even sweeter when you see some of these things?
Well, yeah. You know, the one thing we didn't get to see, I think Brock Purdy hit JaMychal Hasty today. Here's what's guaranteed to happen. And it happened to the Niners in the Packer game, right? Late. And it's happened. They missed the play to Juszczyk. There was a wheel route or somebody leak out, fullback, whatever you want to call it. That's the guy is going to be WAO. Wide ass open, and like 3 things can happen. You can miss him, like Jimmy did with Juszczyk in the Titans game. You can hit him, but like underthrow him, or he's got to dive, and it's a 17-yard gain. But God damn it, if he'd caught it, it would have been 70 yards and a touchdown or something, right?
And even if he gets hawked, it's 50 yards, and if you're at your 20, you're now at your other 20.
That play's coming. And we have not. I wish the last 2 weeks we would have gotten to see Trey make that throw. That's one of the throws I want to see Trey make. Again, not that I'm going to make any conclusion other than that I know for a fact that throw is going to be twice to this year wide ass open.
Would you say the John Gruden spider two wide banana is Kyle Shanahan's running back / Juszczyk leak play?
Yeah.
He fucking yearns and lives not only for the play, but like the time is now. Call it. You know, it's not just the play. It's hit him now.
That's right.
Like it's like
I think,
you know, if you're boxing and you think the left's coming, that's when Kyle goes, John, throw the right jab to the kidney. He's going down.
I think you just nailed it. Whenever you hear a play caller talk about plays, one thing they always say, and Shanahan said it last week, it's like, I'm not inventing anything new for the most part. Like, there's some weird, but for the most part.
Well, you're saying a running back leak is not a new concept?
But like, you know, okay, Jeff, what was the play we always talk about? Brandon Ayuk lines up at tight end or whatever that play was on the goal line. But I think the fun of it is the timing.
But that's just changing formations, running plays, right? Ultimately,
that's
running
true.
plays.
But at least that is. But don't you think? You just made me think. I think the part that's fun is the timing. When do I do, you know?
Well, I think
I've got a fastball, I've got a curveball, I got a slider, I got a change. But when do I throw?
Well, I think many people think Andy Reid's like the greatest screen caller of all time. And part of the screen, right, is to know when to call the screen. If you call the screen when they know it's coming, it sucks. But when you call the screen correctly, and he's now
bad a play call that you can make when they know it's coming.
No, but he's now instituted like the screen to Kelsey, like right in front of the line of scrimmage. Like they have so many different variations. It's always like, how did that work? They run it every week because of the timing of when to run it. It's honestly the defense, same deal. Like a Dick LeBeau, who's a great blitz caller. It's like every offensive lineman in the league has seen like an A-gap blitz or a B-gap blitz. But if you call it at the right time or when they think something else is coming or disguise, it's like, how did that defensive lineman go untouched? Because it's the timing. To me, it's my favorite part. I don't get that into schemes in terms of the actual plays, but of the scheming against each other and the timing of the battle between the two coordinators and the execution. And this is where it gets back to, it does get a little about the Jimmies and the Joes sometimes, because you give Kyle, you give Andy, you give these big time coaches, Belichick, some of his great teams, great players. It's just hard for you not to win double-digit games, right?
Yeah, and then when those great players become as good as coaches on the field, right? Nick Foles saying, let's do Philly here or Philly special here. Patrick Mahomes suggesting WASP.
Some of the stuff, the stories like Ed Reed and Ray Lewis telling people what to do, right? Troy Polamalu like lining everyone up.
Yep.
I know the Chiefs they thought Honey Badger on their defense. Like the last couple of years, the Chiefs defense got a lot better. He just was like a coach out there for everybody. It's why they went to, they transitioned. They couldn't just go with the player. Like they went with Justin Reed, who's a Stanford football, his brother's a football player. Like you need a mind out there. We see at practice Jimmy Ward, right? Like Jimmy is just a really high level, smart football player. It's like, I'm not trying to pile on this guy, but Jonathan Abram, like you can't have your safety be dumb. Your safety can't be dumb. Your middle linebacker can't be dumb. Obviously your quarterback can't be dumb. Like my point guard can't be dumb. Like there's certain positions, like your catcher can't be dumb. You kind of got to know what the fuck's going on. Like at the pro level, at a really high level.
Yeah. So we're looking around practice today, and we mentioned this to start the podcast, going, okay, who's here? And the one guy who always stands out because he's taller than everybody and now is one of the elder statesmen of the team and one of the better players is Eric Armstead. And I think a great measure of somebody, and I don't think this applies to football player OTA attendance because good guys skip OTAs, but just in general in life is, does somebody do what they don't have to do because it's the right thing to do? And I'm not saying OTAs is the right thing to do. I'm not applying that test to football. I'm not saying you only do what's required and that makes you a bad guy. I'm not saying that. But I think if we could just observe people in life, kind of hard knocks, peeking on them without them knowing, I think one of the things you'd watch for if you watched somebody is, do they just do things to help others, to do the right thing, to make their community better, to help out a friend, to volunteer to help a friend before they ask, whatever. Yeah, I can give you a ride. And the one thing you look up, like Eric Armstead's just there. Jimmy Ward's just there on a day when a lot of people aren't sweating it out in pads at their stature.
Well, I think when they made the trade to get rid of DeForest Buckner, it was a double whammy. It was they're getting rid of one of their best players, but they're getting rid of one of their best people. And you would say at the time, I would say on the Super Bowl team, one guy was young and one guy was old, but it felt like Sherman and DeForest Buckner were kind of the leaders of that team on defense. But I'd even say it felt like DeForest Buckner and Sherman were kind of the leaders of the team. Specifically DeForest, though, because he had been there. Like he was a 49er. And when they made the move, it's like, well, now they went with Armstead. He was a little cheaper, but what they're going to lose in DeForest, I would say the last couple of years, it feels like Armstead has kind of become DeForest Buckner. Just community awards, the way he's viewed around here. He's winning this award as we're speaking tonight at the Dwight Clark thing that Mayoko puts on with Steve Young. And you just watch him at practice. You go, well, it's not just because he's a good guy and people like him. Like when your best player is also your best leader and also your hardest worker, like it's Steph Curry, Tom Brady. And I'm not saying Armstead's not those guys, but when you get that level of a leader who also is just a complete grinder, like I've not done a complete 180 because I thought in that Super Bowl team, that was his kind of come to the league moment when he became like, this guy's a high-end player. But I was nervous, like, could he sustain it? And he's sustained it pretty well. And he's been really impressive. But today is just a sign, like, there was a point when we walked on the one side of the field, I just looked around. I was like, are there 50 guys on this practice field? It looked really small relative to a normal 90, man. I mean, honestly, What would you guess how many players were there today? 68?
I think it'd be more than 50. Yeah. Be more
68 is a big difference with 90, though. And a lot of Armstead's equals on that team, especially financially, ain't nowhere to be found. And he's over there work. Now, they do a lot more with younger guys, but his group's not easy.
I think it might be a little more than 68. I'm just imagining when there were 11 offensive players on the field, how many other offensive players were standing around.
But
right?
it's also
68.5
they
would
were
be
all on
30.
the same side. It was defensive and offensive all kind of combined. I know
Defense
split.
wasn't on the sideline with the offense behind the play.
I thought they were all on the side together.
Okay. Yeah, it was not
Maybe some
the
leaked
A-list
over to
of
the side.
attendance, right?
Because remember, you pointed out Fred Warner, and Fred was kind of
That's true. Fred was standing behind, not in pads. Kittle was not in pads, but coaching some guys up. The point here is not that if you don't show up to OTAs, you can't be a leader. The point is that Armstead works really hard. And don't forget, the Buckner trade came right after Eric Armstead got paid too. So Eric Armstead has gotten better since he got paid, I think you would argue, which is, not
100%.
always the case. And
I wouldn't even just sustained a high level. Like, he's very dependable player, I feel like, when you watch him play.
Yep. And versatile. And he practices, what the quarterbacks do at practice is different than what the defensive linemen do at practice. The defensive linemen work physically harder. And Chris Kasarik yells at them a lot more than Brian Griese yells at the quarterbacks. Maybe you would say the quarterbacks have it easier than anybody. Like the Niners D-line, not only do they go through their individual drills with Chris Kasarik screaming at them, but then when they do 11 on 11, the D lineman, you can tell it's a point of emphasis, chase the person who has the football like 20 yards down the field. They all run after him, right? Like they watch the film afterwards. They go, who loafed? So, and I think it's a Saleh thing. I was talking to Biederman. He's like, yeah, it's a Robert Saleh thing, as you said when we were watching, all gas, no brakes. But you don't get to country club it when you play defensive line for the 49ers, even if it's June 1st.
Don't you think that Chris is telling, and now Eric just knows this now, like he's got to do it because they're all looking at him. It's
right.
A lot of you random young guys. It's not some, Drake Jackson not there, Nick Bosa's not there. It's not a star-studded group beside him.
Yep.
Like if they rolled into a game with just those guys, I think we'd be like, well, you're going to need a Herculean effort out of the crew.
Jimmy Ward, too. I mean, Jimmy Ward, made a play, had a PBU today.
But this gets back to in the draft and I've just noticed this for years. Again, this is probably more of a social media thing than it is how actual people look. But people always get so uncomfortable when the anonymous scouts come out and say, like, we need these guys to love it. We don't really want balance. And obviously, Eric Armstead is a balanced guy. Like, he likes basketball. He goes to Kings games. And Jimmy Ward, I think, is married. That's not what they mean. They just mean, like, I need you to fucking be addicted to football. And to me, those guys, like, they love football a lot. And you hear coaches, I would say at every level, but specifically high-level college football and specifically the NFL once they start paying you, like, I need guys that are all in. And when they mean that, like, you kind of got to be a football junkie. Me personally, I'm not a football junkie relative to those guys. John Lynch, football junkie. Adam Peters, football junkie. Obviously, the executives are, the coaches are. They want their players to be like them. Like, you're thinking about it all the time? Because we are, and when your best players are football junkies, it's why, like, I'll give this for George. Like, I do feel George loves football. It's why they love George Kittle, right? Fred Warner loves football. I think they're very comfortable with Trent and Nick Bosa where they are on the football scale. They're so good, you probably couldn't even notice if they didn't or did. But I think they clearly do. But like Jimmy Ward and Eric Armstead, you couldn't even argue it. If someone asked me if like one of those guys became a free agent and I had another team, like, what do you think about this guy? I'd be like, I'd fucking be all over him. Like, if you're interested in that guy, like, you'd want that guy in your building.
Yep.
Like if in a couple years, like Armstead, cap casualty or whatever, or Jimmy Ward, you draft someone, whatever, because that's just the way football works. Like, those guys are going to play. More than likely, they both won't end their career on the 49ers. I'd be like, I would bring this guy in the building if the money's right. You want those guys. It's really what the whole scouting process is about, like trying to find the right guys that just eat, breathe, and sleep it. And, those are two bulky picks,
Well, Bulky's type and John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan's type is actually kind of the same type, right?
I would say Bulky is more likely to take some huge swing. But, yeah, I mean,
Sorry, they're not exactly. I mean, character mattered less to Trent, but I just mean like the guy that they would have. The guy that John Lynch would like on tape is the same guy I think Bulky would like on tape.
I would say his question for sure with Bulky would be the character shit. He was closer to Al Davis.
Yeah, and the lack of injury concerns.
But he's got a chance to rewrite his career.
Yeah.
Say this: if Trent Baalke and the Jags are like in the playoffs in a couple years, Trent would be like, "Hey, remember me when I used to go to NFC Championships, and now I'm in the playoffs with the Jags? Remember that, guys? Like, it's not his resume ain't gonna look like Dave Gettleman's." And I do feel that's the way sometimes people talk about him. I'm not some Trent Baalke apologist or defender here, but I don't know if he's as bad as people act sometimes.
It just ended so badly for with him and the 49ers, but I agree. It's not Gettleman.
No, not at all.
Is it I just saw this check this out. A couple of tweets here. Is the right thing? So I guess Myles Garrett today was asked about Baker Mayfield. I'm reading Tony Grossi's tweets here. And Myles Garrett commenting on Baker Mayfield without mentioning his name. People come and go. And this is one of those things. I hope the best for him. I hope he moves on. He does well for himself. I never wish ill on anyone who I've been up against or played with. He's going to land on his feet. He's played well when he's healthy. When he's healthy, he can do some pretty good things for a team. Just has to find his niche again. I think he has to prove himself, has to get healthy. I think it worked out for both. So talking about Baker Mayfield in the past tense in Cleveland, no shocker. Another accuser for Deshaun. You know what it made me think? I go back to when we had Greg Papa on, and he said he kind of said that he thinks the door on Jimmy Garoppolo to the Browns is not totally closed.
I thought it was nuts. I truly believe that he's going to get a 17-game suspension. That Deshaun Watson is going to be suspended for the season. And Jacoby Brissett is just not good. If Jacoby Brissett starts 17 games, the Cleveland Browns will not be in the playoffs. Now, I'd have to look at their cap situation. Now, obviously, the Niners probably work with them. I guess if they got rid of Baker, they could clear $18 million. But if they're not able to trade him and had to cut him, they'd have to eat that money. I do not believe that the Browns could make it happen if they have to eat Baker's Mayfield $18 million. Most teams couldn't, right? That's a large, especially when your entire team's under. Like the Browns team exists. Like they're paying a lot of guys. You know, they got, you know, the hell. I know Deshaun doesn't make that much this year, but they got a lot of guys under contract at large numbers. So yeah. I think they would have to be able to get rid of Baker, which I do not see where he's going. Because the one thing you would say is that you can say whatever you want about Jimmy Garoppolo. There is no one, not a soul, that's saying a bad thing about the person. His greatest thing he's got going for him is like knows all the offenses and great guy, right? Love to have him around. Teammates love him. Coaches can drive him nuts with his play, but they like the guy. Baker feels like someone's trading $18 million for the way these guys, like, I would say if I was like John Schneider, like, yeah, can we get him for like $4 million? Like, why am I, and Seattle's not Mr. Character, but with the quarterback.
Yeah. So
I don't know, man.
Nate on the stream says Jimmy for Jacoby Brissett and a pick. The problem is if you got Jimmy, you would still want Jacoby Brissett because you might need a backup for 3 games, right? Because Garoppolo's been hurt. I do think the thing with Cleveland, good roster.
It'd be a good spot
coach.
for Jimmy.
I think if you're Jimmy, you would take a pay cut to go play there.
Try to resurrect your career?
Well, it's just the Niners are going to cut you. Now, maybe if you're him, you're like, well, cut me, then I'll go to Cleveland and I'll just sign with them. Whatever. It doesn't make a difference to me.
Which that might happen too.
Could happen too. But the thing is, Cleveland might not be able to wait. Right? The Niners, if they were going to cut Garoppolo, would not do it until right before the season. And Cleveland may not be able to wait until that point in time to do it. So this is a situation where I think a team like the Browns, I think, would trade for Jimmy and give him another year on his contract and somehow restructure it.
I think they would try to get him to do the restructure before he went. Maybe go like, cut your contract by half and we'll incentivize it up to that number.
They might try.
How would you give him 2 years when you just paid a guy $230 million?
Yeah, he's not on your team next year, but you're moving some money around where some of it's going to count against your cap next year and you'll deal with it later. It's not to actually have him on your team in 2023. It's just you add a year to somehow move some funny money around.
Well, you might look at it too, like what if you get him and do that what you're saying? What if he leads you to the playoffs? All of a sudden, Jimmy's been in the playoffs with multiple teams. Like
now you can trade him.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you can get more than the 4th you give the Niners, but
remember, they traded a lot of picks to old Houston.
That's true.
Obviously, those are first and second round picks, but
That's true. But anyway, there's a world where Jimmy Garoppolo gets traded to the Browns and agrees to play for $13 million. Or, I don't know what the number would have to be for that. Maybe it's, I don't know. But
what if like you did something like that?
Because I'm with you. I think Deshaun is getting suspended for, I think the whole year is definitely in play.
What if you did something like every game we win you're the starting quarterback, it's like a $750,000 bonus, so it could add up quick to like
we give you 50% of the ticket sales.
We give you all the hot dog revenue.
Have you heard of Zenny, Jimmy? He's like, yeah, they don't pay enough. Subway, $1 million.
Yeah, we give you all the proceeds from the barbecue beef sandwiches we sell.
Like, think about the crazy situation that had to result in the Colts and the Browns getting off the table for Garoppolo. When we sit here and we're like, how is a team going to need Jimmy? That's like, well, who saw Deshaun on the Browns and Matt Ryan on the Colts before that happened? Crazy things happen.
Who would have saw, like, in Christmas, Wentz being on the football team?
Wentz being on the football team.
Honestly, that to me, once that kind of came out of nowhere, yeah, it's just, if you would have told me Deshaun Watson, we knew he was going to get traded, not a soul would have said the Cleveland Browns, right?
No.
3 months ago or whatever. You're right. It was all the Jimmy teams all had the craziest shit happen for him, and they're sitting in this spot.
The league does not care at all that Deshaun just missed a year. The league is not, they're not Robert. They've punished Robert Kraft before. They are not going to hesitate to punish Jimmy Haslam. And again, the Browns, the contract the contract they gave him tells us what the Browns think. They think he's getting suspended. They're paying him $1 million this year. Right? Isn't that the number?
Yeah, $1 million.
What more information do we need? The Browns think he's getting suspended, and it's getting worse. So
he's getting suspended.
And by the way,
do you think? I don't think they would steal. Like, actually, I think Manfred and Goodell. I mean, maybe their lockers are close at Augusta. Both members at the Masters. You see what they did to Trevor Bauer? Because it's not like baseball cared that he missed the majority of this season. They gave to it. Yeah. What are you going to do?
Because what's the point? Like, if you're them and you suspend him for 8 games, you're not like you're still going to get shit. So what do you care?
Listen, I don't know how you, like, I'm not saying one domestic assault or dispute is any, like, I'm not trying to value one's worse than the others.
Yeah.
I do not remember a situation with the volume of this, and then a show happens and someone gets added on. Like, this is not like Greg Hardy. Now, again, complete scumbag, complete loser. It was one woman, right? Ray McDonald had the one woman. Like, and those guys obviously got in trouble and complete scumbags. This guy, I mean, it's fucking half of Texas.
Crazy.
Didn't you say that you read that now this one's alleging that he had like a ringer basically funneling him, the masseuses?
Yeah, that's the latest allegation.
Like the allegations are just, they grow. It's crazy.
Yeah. 24 civil cases.
Yeah,
24.
What if do you think there would be that many people defending Deshaun Watson if I said Roger Goodell said 34 games? Who's like, this is wrong? Well, that's what everyone's been asking for. No one's saying listen, if he comes out innocent in the evidence, they'll reduce him. What you could argue 1 year might not be enough. Where this fucking headed.
You could.
This guy is a threat to your league if he has no clue how to act. I mean, just clearly some weird shit is going on. He acknowledged they were crying. Now, just because you're crying, that doesn't make you a criminal. But I think his attorney said he was fucking them. Like, they admitted it. It's just, he had a girlfriend. Like, again, I think the guy is a complete loser. And I went from thinking he was fucking Michael Jordan high character guy. I'm not saying Michael Jordan's perfect here. I just mean, like, Dabo called him Michael Jordan. I thought he was a great player. And then, like, to me, I held him in the regards of, like, Mahomes, Watson,
exactly,
Josh Allen, Herbert, Lamar, great guys. And then it's like, no, actually, those guys have nothing in common with this dude.
Right.
Everywhere I see Mahomes, his wife's on his side. This guy Instagrams his girlfriend, but he's got all the masseuses. Honestly, when I saw that chick was added, How do you feel if you're the Cleveland Browns? Like,
Well, terrible. Well, I mean, I don't know if they feel terrible, but
they can't feel good.
it hasn't gone well to begin with. It's not like,
It's
we
going
put 'em
worse,
out
guy.
there.
He won't pay them to go away. He keeps talking and he makes it worse.
That's what I'm saying. It's like they did. I don't know if they were dumb enough to think we'll just do a press conference and everyone will chill out, because that was pretty clear that's not how this one was going to go.
They did say in the press conference, I watched a couple snippets whenever that day was, like later in the day. They felt comfortable because someone asked, like, do you guys want him to just make this go away, kind of? And like, can we settle this? And they're like, we feel comfortable with talking to him about going through the process, because it's getting worse, him going through the process.
It's getting worse. Yeah. It's getting worse.
You could argue it might continue to, like, nothing will shock me moving forward.
That's a good point. If it's 25 accusers, 26 accusers, it's a very good point. Yeah. All right. Anything else we need to hit today?
What a day,
The match is on right now. I've only seen a couple swings. Does not appear that we're watching like Steph Curry and Tony Romo. I've seen a couple clips of like, look at this swing for Patrick Mahomes.
I would imagine those two guys' balls are flying everywhere.
Which is not great,
I did see McAfee wrote, what a start for the OG, so the old guys must have got off to an early lead.
Well, they're both good at golf, right?
USA 2-0.
In what's USA 2-0 in what sport?
That's Patrick Mahomes drinking a Coors Light. Patrick Mahomes crashes his first Coors Light. It helps me for a while, as long as I don't drink too much of it. I was going to wait till the fourth hole, but I got down, so I had to go and open up a little bit early. So I wonder if the young guys are in a little trouble.
So have they hidden? Do we not know what the score was? Because this is on tape. Did they not release that? This is all.
Maybe it is live. I guess it is Vegas. So 5 o'clock, the light would still be out.
Live?
So it's not crazy. It's at the Wynn Casino.
Yeah. Warriors Celtics.
They're 1 up through 4.
Oh, okay. Warriors Celtics on Thursday.
Excited.
Can't wait.
See you there.
See you there. I got tickets. You just owe me $17,000.
You want to play that game right now really quick?
Yeah, let's play that game real quick.
Lower bowl ticket, cheapest I can find. Your guess.
I'm
using SeatGeek.
Lower bowl, cheapest ticket. I'm gonna say 625.
1310.
Yeah, God, I should have known that was too low.
If you want to get like A4, so 4 rows back from the court, 86. Doesn't sound too crazy.
86 doesn't sound too crazy. I think you're numb.
Well,
$8,600, 4 rows.
When I say too crazy, you have to put the level of which people are down there. Remember, we talked about the wealth level. If I was worth $50 million and 8,600 was like $20 to me, if I wanted to go to the game, it's not cheap. I'm not acting like it's some steal, but
you can
sit. What if you were super rich and you love Steph Curry? Would it really matter that much to you?
No, you wouldn't think that much about 84, but it looks like the lowest price is 686.
Get in.
Yeah, the cheapest ticket right now on TickPick is $686. That's in section 213.
I don't feel this is a terrible price. Am I nuts? Amazing deal. Courtside. 15.
I'm gonna guess 15,000.
NBA Finals.
Yeah, I mean, those are. I think face value on those is like 5,000. Remember, we talked about this. That's what I was told. Is the face value after you pay your $500,000 rights.
So if you get 3x on the NBA Finals, right? It's not crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you can. Yeah, here you go. Row A4, 13,000. What's the most expensive ticket? Let's just for fun.
I saw something 28. Just when you scrolled, what's that?
A3, 28,000. You think I put this on the credit card? I'd get a call immediately from the credit card company.
I honestly think my biggest credit card limit is like 30, and I don't
You could
have
get it in.
I have a running, but my balance right now is like 6, so I wouldn't even be able to charge it.
For 2, John, it'd be 57. So you'd have to Venmo me.
I'd have to use 3 credit cards to make that purchase.
You'd have to show up with your mortgage.
Yeah, I don't even know. I'd be like, do you take all my stocks that are underwater?
How about 1 Bitcoin? Well, from when?
So,
Excalibur says you guys should get courtside tickets and then wear ham shirts and then write it off. I saw somebody today tweet because the Game 7 Heat Celtics game, there were these 2 guys sitting courtside wearing Heat jerseys, and the back said like FTX on the name.
yeah.
Someone's like, "What? These guys? Who are they?" Like, clearly that was the promo. Like someone, like they FTX.
Well, you know what
guys.
FTX is, right?
Yeah, it's a crypto.
Yeah, I mean,
But I think it's like they might have their name on the arena. Like it might be their floor.
FTX is big.
So they definitely have at least one naming rights. They have the naming rights to Cal Memorial Stadium. The field is FTX Field. They have multiple. So these guys clearly paid by FTX or maybe work for FTX. Just put their names. So then they're standing up the whole game, and it's kind of going viral. Like, who are these dudes cheering with FTX on the jersey?
You could argue if we would have thought this out, might not be the craziest move.
Promo code AM?
Yeah, I'm just saying, $30,000. I mean, if we thought big picture, I wonder if we could make it up pretty easily.
Ravel would be like, they got $9 million of advertising exposure.
I actually think you could.
Cheaper than buying a couple commercials on the.
To me, it would really depend where you're situated on the floor, because there are floor seats where you never see the people, right?
Yeah, that's right. If there's a Game 7, we tell Tito's, let's get all the money, let's just buy 2 tickets.
What would you guess the floor seat in Game 7 goes for?
Well,
45.
What I can't even really see what these are going for now. Like I saw that one was A4 is 28, but that's not the floor.
Yeah. So I'd guess 40, 50 grand. Game 7. The Celtics.
What's A5? These are $160,000.
I'd guess it's a box.
No, I think it's a row. But it's not on the floor. Damn.
That's not a cheap seat.
Here's 34,000.
You better really like basketball.
It's like, it's a D. It's a D deal according to the website. It's a D.
Can you imagine if it's like a 30-point game? You're like, oh, that was worth it.
Oh my God.
That happens. Celtics
ticket prices might, as we know, John, we don't want to buy the tickets Wednesday. We'll wait till Thursday. We'll check back.
It's true. You gotta have patience.
All right. Thanks for hanging with us, everybody. Adios.
Later.